So, welcome everybody to part two of our four-part series on embodiment for immunity and resilience. And I'm Emily Winter, Somatic Experiencing Practitioner at Elevate Wellness Center over at the Y here in South Lake Tahoe. And of course, right now I've transitioned my practice to online. So I'm doing all of my somatic experiencing work over the internet at this point. This is a four-part series, and each week we are going to be exploring embodiment through a different area of our bodies. And last week we focused on our heart space and sensing into our body and into the internal experience through your heart. And this week we're going to be exploring embodiment through our hands and our feet. So all the exercises that I'm going to offer you today are from either yoga or somatic experiencing or some other embodiment practice that I've picked up over the years. But each one of these practices is meant to increase your immunity, increase your resilience. And the way that it does that is by supporting the overall coherence of your internal bodily systems. So when we work through embodiment, we work with our nervous system. We can support all of our organ systems and our brain to start to operate in more of a harmonious way. And it's a great way to release stress and improve your resilience against illness and stress and trauma. So today we'll be exploring our hands and our feet and doing a couple different exercises with both of those. Your hands and your feet both have, on the palms of your hands, your finger pads, and on the soles of your feet, there's a complete map of every organ system of your body. So there are these neural connections that we have between our hands and the soles of our feet and every other organ system of our bodies. So when we work with our hands and work with our feet and bring some mindful awareness into those places, then we can start to find a new way to connect with those other systems in our body, and we can support the overall coherence of all of our systems. So if you haven't already, I'll invite you just to find yourself in a comfortable seat, and I'll invite you to sit in a chair today or on a couch so that you can actually have your knees bent and your feet on the floor. And if you're sitting on the floor and you just want to be on the ground today, that's okay too. But since we are working with the soles of our feet, it might be nice to at least be able to bring the soles of your feet down onto the ground. So as you're just getting comfortable, I want to just say a couple more words about embodiment today and the experience we're going to have together. Because sometimes when we start to tune inward to what's happening in our bodies below the neck, we might be a little surprised by what comes up. Now, sometimes we might notice there's some emotion in there when we start to sense into our viscera or into a certain part of our body. Or perhaps you might notice some discomfort or some tension that you weren't really aware of before. And this can happen because we are very good at overriding discomfort in our bodies. So we can just go about the day and get done what we need to get done. And when we pause and slow down and bring that mindful awareness internally, whatever has been there that we've kind of been holding down and not feeling might start to bubble up a little bit. So I want to just make a note of that. If we're moving through an exercise and you find yourself feeling some discomfort of any kind, then I invite you just to let your gaze actually move out into your room, bring your awareness a little bit more out of that deep internal experience, and just give yourself a time to pause and time to rest. And of course, if you do find anything today that you'd like additional support on or have a question about, you can reach out to me. And the final thing that I'll note here is, we're working with our hands and our feet. And some folks participating today might not have both hands or both feet, or you might have decreased mobility, limited mobility, or decrease in sensation for whatever reason, old injury or what have you, in a hand or a foot. And I just want to offer to you to bring some curiosity to your experience today, if that's you, because you might be surprised at how much awareness you can actually still build for that area in your body, even if it's been numb for a long time, or even if you've lost a hand or a foot, there's still a map in your brain of that part of your body. So you can tune in to the energetic imprint of that area and just get curious about what might come up for you. So just notice how you're seated right now. You can let your gaze lower at your lap and just make any final adjustments you'd like to sit comfortably. We'll be moving around a little bit, but just allow your back to rest against the back of your chair, and allow the seat of your chair to hold your legs, your feet on the floor. And I'll invite you just to take a little bit of a longer breath. So slowly starting to just come into your body. And if your breath is feeling a little short and constricted today, then don't try to force a big open breath. Maybe just lengthen your exhale by 1 or 2 seconds. And we'll start with a little bit of movement today with our hands first. So taking your hands outside of your arms and just starting to rub your upper arms up and down. So all we're doing here is simply starting to wake up our bodies, wake up our nervous system a little bit so we can feel the sensations better. We can become more aware of what's happening below the neck and get out of our heads a little bit. And then just relaxing your hands, bring your hands outside of your thighs and just gently rub up and down the outside of your thighs. And you can give little squeezes here and there with your fingers, just palpating gently and just waking up those legs a little bit. And then you can just let your arms and your shoulders relax and bring awareness down to your feet on the floor. So I'll invite you to plant both your feet on the floor, your knees stacked above your ankles. If for whatever reason you're maybe a little bit on the shorter side or you're sitting in a tall chair, you can bring, a block of some kind or books underneath your feet because you want to be able to feel some stability underneath the soles of your feet. And first, let's just start by wiggling the toes. So just letting those toes wiggle, and you can flex and curl your toes in. And still breathing, just moving through your toes. And then let your toes and your feet relax back down onto the floor. And we'll do a few heel drops. So coming up onto the balls of your feet and your tiptoes, and then just let your heels fall down onto the ground. And just a nice little way to release some energy out of your heels and help to ground your nervous system. And I apologize for my squeaky, creaky chair over here. And then just let your legs relax again. And just notice your feet right now. And you might observe that there's a little bit more sensation online. So whatever you notice here, just keeping that awareness down in your feet. Now I'll invite you to lift up your right leg, just lift your right foot up off the floor, and just point and flex your foot. So point your toes, and then flex your foot, reach your heel forward, draw your toes back toward your shin. And you're gonna find a few more just like that, pointing and flexing. You might notice some sensations in your thigh here, your ankle. If you're lifting your foot up, you're using some of those leg muscles, increasing circulation down through your leg. Let's release the right foot back to the floor. And now lift your left foot up, just any amount off the floor. And same thing, finding some pointing and some flexing. Still pointing and flexing. Feel your leg. Notice any pops and cracks in your ankle or toes. Just a little discharge. And then you can release that foot back down onto the floor. Take a moment here, just letting your gaze settle down toward your lap. And just notice what you notice about your feet and your ankles. And again, there's no wrong answer to that question. I'll continue to be inviting you to check in with how your nervous system is responding. And this is just how we build that mindful self-awareness of what's really going on in our nervous systems right now. Can you sense any tingling in your ankles or feet? Maybe a sense of temperature. Maybe your feet just feel like they're a little more planted on the floor, or something else. Great. Now from here, I'm going to offer the option to come up to standing just for a few minutes. And if standing isn't available to you, you can do every exercise today seated. And also, if you don't feel like standing, you can explore these exercises from seated. But if you're comfortable and standing is available to you, then go ahead and stand up. And I'll stand up along with you. And I just want you to notice how you've come to standing. Where did your feet land on the floor under you? How are your legs holding you here? Are you standing equally on each side or more on one side than the other? Notice if your hips feel like they're pushing forward a little bit, or if there's maybe some rounding in your spine. So again, there's nothing wrong with any of that. It's just starting to bring awareness to how are you standing right now? What's your posture like when you come just into a natural standing pose? Yeah, and just from however you're standing right now, I'm going to invite you to start to let your eyes move around the room that you're in. Just slowly taking in the different colors and textures that are in your space. And just get a little curious about how it is to look around your room and notice what is in your space from just your natural standing pose. So you might just feel like it feels normal because we haven't really done anything with our standing pose yet. We're just in our natural stance looking around. All right. Now we're going to explore a little bit of movement using our feet to help us to get grounded and to help us feel centered. So coming in more toward our center line. So first, just start to let your weight shift from one foot to the other. If you're seated, you could just let your upper body sway a little bit, shifting your weight from one sits bone to the other. Notice if you're breathing as you sway. And you can be making a little tiny sway side to side, or you might match my sway, which is pretty big today. It's really nice, long sway side to side. And as you're swaying, just notice each foot. Okay? There's a giving and receiving that's happening with your feet right now. As you push off the left foot, send the weight into the right foot. You push off the right foot and send your weight into your left foot. Let's start to come back to that center line. Make sure your knees are not locked here. If you tend to lock your knees, you want to just have supple joints. Now I'll invite you to do a smaller movement, swaying a little forward and back. So be gentle here, and if you feel a little off balance, you can always, hold on to the back of your chair as you find that sway forward and back. Rocking weight onto the balls of your feet and your toes, and then back onto your heels. And if you go a little too far back and have to take a little step to catch yourself, that's fine. We're just exploring this transfer of weight, and we're palpating the bottom of our feet and giving ourselves a little bit of a foot massage here, starting to innervate all the different organ systems in your whole body. And start to come back to center. So we'll do just a couple more things from standing. In somatic experiencing, one thing that I learned from one of my teachers is this connection that we have between our eyes in our head and the skin on the soles of your feet. So there's actually neural connections between the skin on the soles of your feet and your eyes and your sense of vision. Your feet play a really important role in your sense of stability and your sense of balance, right, which are, of course, also connected with your vision. So I'm going to invite you to play with this idea of having eyes on the soles of your feet. And we're just going to spend a moment stacking our joints and kind of getting into a nice, comfortable standing posture. So gazing down to your feet. Feet can be pointing straight forward or maybe a little out to the side, whatever is more comfortable for you. But you want your hips to be above your ankles. Hips above the ankles. And then moving up from there, shoulders above your hips. So just finding that posture. Your tailbone kind of drops straight down, lengthening your spine. Your shoulders might come onto your back just a little bit to line up above your hips. And then allowing your eyes just to gaze straight forward and relaxing your eyes. And whatever you're looking at, just take a moment to let your eyes appreciate the colors and textures. And then I'll invite you just to bring some awareness back down into the soles of your feet. Imagining that you had eyes on the skin of the soles of your feet. And those eyes were gazing down toward your floor, gazing down toward the earth. So spend a moment here with your soles of your feet connecting to the floor, soles of your feet supporting your eyes to be able to relax, and all these joints stacking in your body. You can allow your gaze to look around again and get curious about how is it different now to orient to the space that you're in. Is there any subtle difference when you're connecting with the soles of your feet, supporting your whole body? And you might notice there's a little bit of a softer quality to your eyes or your gaze, where you can just allow the room to come to you visually. Feel free to just stay here, seated, standing with your soles of your feet, connecting to the floor, visualizing those eyes on the soles of your feet, gazing down. And if you're comfortable, then I'll invite you to actually spend 10 or 12 seconds taking a few really slow, mindful steps around your room. And imagining that with each step you take, the eye on your foot is gazing down to the ground, looking to the ground with each step that you take. So just explore that, keeping your eyes soft, letting the soles of your feet really support your slow walk. Notice how it might feel a little bit differently to walk around with this awareness of the soles of your feet, looking out for you, looking at the earth for where you're going to step. And when you've had your fill of exploring this, walking with this really grounded sense in your feet, and you can just slowly make your way back to your comfortable chair. So I am moving, relatively quickly through these exercises because I want these sessions to be really available to you to just watch and learn a few things. But you can feel free to play with these exercises on your own and do them for longer, especially if you find any of these activities really does seem to make some kind of a difference for you internally in your mental or emotional state or in how you feel physically. That's an indication that your nervous system responded really well to that exercise and that it really resonated with your nervous system. So if you like anything we do today, then I invite you to play with it again. So making your way back into your seat and just finding some comfort in your chair. Once again, let's make sure your feet are on the floor, your knees stacked above your ankles. And now we're going to explore with our hands a little bit. So bring your hands to the top of your thighs, right up toward your hips on the top of your thighs. And very gently start to press your hands down your thighs toward your knees. Then you'll release, bring your hands back up to the top of your thighs and do it again. Gently pressing forward and down on the top of your thighs. As you do this, maybe take a little bit of a longer breath and start to bring some awareness to the texture underneath your hands. And so just noticing the texture of your pants or your skirt, whatever you have on. Noticing if there is a sense of temperature under your palms. So I'll invite you just to keep going with this movement for another minute or so. And I just want to share a few things about our hands from the nervous system perspective. Our hands are incredibly important for so many reasons to our nervous system. But they're also some of the earliest ways that we learn how to communicate our yes and our no. Right? As little babies, you just use your hands to reach out for things and pull them toward you and to push things away that are a no for you. So our hands, they say yes, they say no, they give, they receive, and they reach out. And just like your feet, they have a total and complete map of every other organ system in your body. So right now, as you're gently rubbing your legs, your hands are also becoming a little more embodied here. Maybe some more sensation coming online in your palms. Or maybe find one more nice stroke on the top of your thighs. And then just let your hands rest. You can let your palms turn up and let your hands rest on your thighs. And I'll invite you just to lower your gaze and check in once again with your palms. And noticing any sensations. And also get curious about the rest of your body. And so that practice is a grounding exercise. It helps us to burn off a little bit of activated anxious energy and helps us to bring awareness down to the support that's underneath us, the chair, the floor, feet, whatever's down there. So you might notice a little more settled in your system right now, or not, and that's okay too. Now I'm going to invite you to make fists with your hands. And if you have long fingernails, then you might want to grab onto a blanket or a sweater or something and just squeeze a blanket or a sweater so you don't cut your hands with your nails. But just making nice fists with your hands. And I'll invite you to squeeze those fists. And then squeeze a little more. And then squeeze a little more. And then slowly let your hands release. And you might shake your hands out a little bit or circle your wrists or just let your fingers wiggle. So this exercise we just did is another one to just help you burn off a little energy. It takes a lot of energy to clench and squeeze like that. So it can help us find a little bit of a release when we just let that go. Now bring your palms together and let's start to rub our palms against each other. And feel your right hand rubbing your left hand. And feel your left hand rubbing your right hand. And you can rub slow or fast, but we're building a little bit of energy between our palms right now to bring even more of that sensory experience online. Notice your breath here. So we're kind of innervating all of those internal organ systems too. So there might be some sensations happening internally for you. I invite you just to notice what those are. Great, so your palms might be getting a little warm, your arms might be getting tired. Let's pause and just let your hands float a ½ inch to an inch apart from each other. Gently cupping your fingers, keeping yourself soft and relaxed. And just see if you can sense any sensation in between your palms. Maybe even feeling for that energy moving around in between your palms. And so as we discussed last week, our bodies are emitting bioelectric energy all the time. And we just created a lot of friction. So you can possibly sense that bioelectricity coming off of your fingers, off of your palms. Okay, let's take a moment, release that. I'm going to invite you just to flick your fingers out to the sides. So just flick, flick, flick. Great. And we're going to end today, or I should say our final practice is one that's all about self-touch, self-soothing, and really at a more scientific level, we're going to be working to soothe our vagus nerve, which plays such an important role in our felt sense of safety. So I'm not going to go into the vagus nerve too much today, but let's join the palms together again and just gently rub. We won't rub as long as we did before, but just a little bit, warming them up, getting some energy moving. And in a moment, I'm going to invite you to bring your hands to rest anywhere on your body. Can be two different places as well. So as you're just rubbing here, you might bring that question down your neck and down into your body of where in my body might like a little support from my hand right now. Where might I enjoy a soft touch from myself? And then whenever you're ready, you can just bring your hands to rest on your body. There's no wrong place to put your hands. I invite you just to tune in for yourself of where do you want to give that warmth and that energy from your palms. Keeping your gaze down, just take a moment to notice how your body is responding. Now you can keep your hands wherever they are. We're going to be here for a few minutes though, so I'm going to give you several options and you can feel free to play with one or more of them as I guide you through this practice of just self-holding, which is what this little series of exercises is called. So the first option that I'll offer is one hand to your heart, one hand to your belly. And the vagus nerve goes down through your heart and down through all your abdomen and all of these different organs in your viscera. And you can feel free to test them out and just see what you like. And the other option, or another option, is one hand to your diaphragm. So kind of the solar plexus area where your ribs come together. And the diaphragm is that flat muscle that lies underneath your lungs. So one hand on the diaphragm and one hand to your brainstem. So just gently holding the place where your skull and your neck meet. And that's your brainstem, your survival brain, where fight and flight get activated from. And sometimes this can be really supportive of your vagus nerve as well. And working with the breathing through your diaphragm and holding the brainstem. Another option is one hand to your heart and one hand to your forehead. And the final option I'll give for you today is to bring both hands gently to rest on the outside of your hips. And that one is really to support awareness and softening of the pelvic floor, which has a lot to do with our trauma response and our breathing. And if we can soften and relax through the pelvic floor and nourish and support that area, then it can help our nervous system to settle and calm down. So choose wherever you want your hands to be for the next 5 minutes or so. And of course, you can play around with a few different ones. If your hand's lifted, one arm might get tired and you can try something else. And just inviting your gaze to soften, or maybe your eyes close if that's comfortable. Allow your hands to be just really soft and gentle wherever they're resting. And I'll invite you to imagine that you have ears on the palms of your hands. So just like we had eyes on the soles of our feet, now we're playing with ears in the palms of your hands. And as you breathe quietly here, get curious about how much those ears can listen in to your body. How far underneath your hands can you sense what's happening? And I also invite you to consider, what message are you conveying to your body with your hands? Knowing that your hands are very powerful conduits for this electric energy and for this coherence that we explored last week, what message are your hands sending in? Well, that might be words of some kind, nourishing, supportive words. It could also just be visualizing color streaming in from your palms and fingertips, or little lights dancing out of your hands into your body. Whatever feels most natural to you, I invite you just to spend a few moments here offering that message to your body with your hands. And then notice how that space underneath your hands is responding. Just being curious about what you might find there. And just allowing your breath to be slow, noticing if you sense your heartbeat. Just lengthening your breath on the exhale. Keeping your gaze down or your eyes closed. You can slowly let your hands relax down into your lap. Maybe allowing one of your hands to just hold the other. If your hands were lifted on your head, you can find a shoulder roll or a little shrug just to release any tension in your shoulders from lifting your arms. And I'll invite you just to end here with a long sigh. So drawing in a full breath, then opening your mouth and releasing. And keeping your gaze down, bring attention once again to the soles of your feet on the floor. Perhaps imagining the eyes on the soles of your feet and softly looking down, keeping you rooted to the earth. And in your own time, let your gaze begin to float around your room one more time. Feeling the soles of your feet, feeling your chair supporting your body. And noticing what your eyes want to look at. And you're slowly coming back to the screen in your own time. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today. I'm going to stop the video now, and then I'll invite you if you want to. You can turn your video on, and I'll unmute you, and then we can all just wave and say quick hello and goodbye to each other again, and see the community that's been sharing the space with you tonight.